Good day, family. This is the BigDaddy Football Corner, where I do pre-match and post-match tactical analysis, and mostly of Orlando Pirates matches. I had the first video of the pre-match analysis between Orlando Pirates and CapeTown City. I'm back again to do the post-analysis of that particular match, which CapeTown City won 1-0. Mushin Ertugal's second match, and he won again. He got 3 points from the two Soweto Giants. So maybe let us talk about two things that I mentioned, or some of the two things that I mentioned in the previous video. I said in high probability CapeTown City were going to play on transitions, and that's exactly what happened. You can go and watch the video as well. And then again, the same thing I said, who's going to win this game is somebody who's going to ensure that he dominates the midfield. And I was very, very sure that a high chances that CapeTown City were going to play more central midfielders in midfield. They will have more numbers in midfield to probably block Pirates and Top Pies from playing through the middle, which is what we've seen before, especially against more cheaper, who have got great coaches and they're great in actually planning against Orlando Pirates. And Mushin Ertugal ensured that, because in the first half he had 3 central midfielders to try and match Orlando Pirates. In the second half, he even frustrated them more, because now he added an extra body into midfield. He ended up having 4 central midfielders, and for me that was very interesting from Mushin Ertugal. Also, it also talks about being a great coach, because I've always been saying that how you see a great coach is when he comes in the first half with a different tactic. If he sees that it doesn't work, he changes there and there and actually win the match. And I think for me, I'll give big ups to Mushin, because tactically I think he won the match for CapeTown City. Now let us dive deep and look at certain observations that I made in a particular match. First of all, in the first half, I was very, very impressed by CapeTown City's transitions. I think they were very, very explosive, and for me they played the same type of transitions that is played by Stellies, where they're using 3 players in transitions, and they make runs mostly in the channels, and they hardly make runs probably on the sides, or on the near the line. And for me, I think there was terrific. I think this CapeTown City team is highly likely to start playing more like Stellies, and I think they do have the players. That's what we've been saying, that Eric Tinkler, was likely that he's going to go. I think we've said it so many times, especially in the TTV show, Ishogalindo Pep, on TikTok, that he's not going to finish the season, because he had the quality for him to play football. And I think Mushin came in and just few adjustment, and the team looks completely different, and that's what I felt. The other thing as well that I noticed was how Orlando Pirates counted the fact that they they had more numbers than them, or they were attacking them through the channels, just like Stellies. So what was happening was our defense, they played a little bit narrow, right? Our left back and right back came more inside, just to close the space in between the right back and the right center back, to close the space in between the center backs, to close the space in between the left center back and the left back. So to a point that I saw Diane on the other side, there was always a player, on his side, on the right-hand side, that was always looking to cheat. I think at one moment where ECT switched the ball into his side, but he just looked so comfortably, going into that side and actually closing that space. And I was like, wow, because I was very, very worried, but I could see that Diana wasn't worried. I personally think that Orlando Pirates has got themselves one of the best right backs in the country in this instance. I think he is a wonderful, an extremely wonderful player, Udiano fine, right? But what interests me the most are just few things. One of them is how quick his recovery is. No matter how far he is from the player, he's quickly within seconds, able to recover. I think there was a match against Cheaper where Usesane made a mistake, and the player was ahead of him, and then he Evanga, and he went and recovered, into the, and I was like, wow. Now that is Diano that we're talking about. The other thing as well with him, I think he is a complete right back in the fact that he can play different formations, any formation that you want to play with Diallo, he can be able to play it because he's very, very good. I think his only downfall is probably his height, especially when we want to change your right back and play probably with a flat 3 at the back with your right back as one of the center backs. I think that is his only flaw. But regardless of that, I think in and out of position, he'll always be present, he will always be effective. He's also present in all phases of the match, and not only present, but he also being effective in those phases. But what I love him the most is how versatile he is, because when you want a right back that is going to tag a line, right, and give you width, he gives you that. When you want a right back that is going to invert and add more numbers into midfield, he also inverts, and not just only inverts, he can also play the ball as well. Also, what I like about him is he could easily make underlapping runs. He can easily make overlapping runs. I honestly think Orlando Pirates has got themselves a very, very, very good right back. So the other interesting element that I saw was the 3-man press, which was a straight line. So there were 3 players when Orlando Pirates were building up. There were 3 players, and they were spread across, into that. So I found that interesting because one, they were blocking the lanes with their shadow press, whereby at the back of them they were closing the lanes to the players behind them. But then what I also think probably they were trying to do was to try to provide bodies there that they will close, or they will make the central midfielders ineffective and being afraid to play because they had 3 players, across them. But I think possibly it did not work for me in this particular match, because when I look at the first half analysis, I was like, Orlando Pirates is still able to play through that 3-man press, especially how spread they are. So our central midfielders were in between those 2 players, and they were receiving, turning, and making those passes. And I think for me that was ineffective, and that's exactly what happened in second half, because then he changed that, because he ended up dropping an extra player from that 3 into midfield. He ended up having a 4-4-2, especially when he was pressing or out of position. So for me that was interesting. That was interesting to see. The other thing as well that was also very interesting for Orlando Pirates for me was, even though Cape Town City had numerical superiority in midfield, Orlando Pirates were still able to play through them. Because, guys, Orlando Pirates playing through the pockets, they are one of the most dangerous teams. I was very impressed at this triangular combination play to progress play as they go towards the other to the final third of the opposition. I like how they interpreted positional play. I also like the positional rotation that Orlando Pirates had in this match. But for me, there was the highlight of the first half. But the other thing as well that I noticed was when Orlando Pirates get into the crossing zones, we all know Orlando Pirates is not a team. Jose is not a team that likes to cross the ball. So, but what was frustrating for me was, especially from Kota's side, when he gets into the crossing zones, he was then crossing the ball into the traffic and not in front of the traffic. Because I think City in the first half, they could not defend their pivotal zone. Some people call it the red zone. And I don't know how many times I counted where he went on the wing and the players dropped and created traffic inside the 18 area, and then just in front of them, then there was space and it wasn't utilized, right? Then my second half observation is exactly what I said. And I said he switched from out of position. City switched from playing a 4-3-3, right? And then they switched into a 4-4-2. And then towards the end of the match, they ended up even switching to a 4-5-1. And I think that's what frustrated Pirates more, because then they started wanting to play more on the wings. And this is where we are most ineffective, because whenever we're on the wings, we always want to come back to the inside, because we're a club that doesn't want to cross the ball. The other second thing that I think changed in the second half was Mushin allowing both Sesane and Sibisi to have the ball, right? All he did was to close any passing lanes into the middle, also close in the players, because they like to play diagonal balls, especially Sesane, playing diagonal balls to Urele and Uhoto, and then Usubisi, because he's right-footed, playing on the left, he plays diagonal balls to Unkot. So when you're closing those players, you're forcing them to then use their left and right back, and come through basically from the wing side. And then I think that's where they wanted us, because they know that even if we get into that zone, we're not going to cross. We'll always want to come back into the inside where the traffic is. But one aspect of this match, guys, which was a learning moment for me and a lesson to even every team and every soccer player, is that when you don't take your chances into this game, you will be punished. You can dominate the game in any way that you can, but if you don't use the chances and you're scoring the goals required, you're not going to win the match, because Orlando Pirates dominated the game. If you look at it, ball possession, they had 49 against 41. If you look at the goal saves, I think on the other end, City had 4. The goalkeeper made 4 saves, and he and Ichaina made 2. And then I think they hit the woodwork twice. I think if you look at the highest concentration of play, it was more on City's side. If you look at the touches in the penalty area, Pirates had 43 and City only had 13. If you look at the final third entries, Orlando Pirates had 73 and City had 33. For me, it was total domination. But what was the score? It was 1-0. What does that tell you? If you don't use your chances, you will be punished. For me, there's just 2 observations that I made on the Orlando Pirates team. First of all is in this match, I just felt that the club needed more experience, right? And I felt Jose's bench was very, very weak. If you look at it, they had players like Monchobeni, with all due respect, Motuso, Moleleki into midfield. And those players, for me, they not, Radio Pane, for instance, they not effective. They're not going to come in the second half and add any different element. This particular game is one game, and I think even the second half of the season, I think this is one where the Orlando Pirates needs to go back and say, team, come back, right? Saleng, come back. Lepasa, come back. Kogi, come back. And not necessarily because, and even Mosele Futi, come back. And not because they are the best players and the ones that are there are not. It's because right now it's crunch time. It's where experience is required. You could see Bonko Otaguti, they have done everything they can. And this is one game where you said, okay, from the bench now, let me win the game from the bench. I think Orlando Pirates in this particular match failed to have any player in the bench that was going to make an impact and change the game. So they had a first 11, but they did not have a bench that was going to win them games, right? And then for me, the second thing was Orlando Pirates was let down by poor decision making in the final third. For me, they were always making the wrong decisions. Sometimes they will make the wrong pass, an extra pass. Sometimes they will have an extra touch, especially in key moments of the game. So for me, it just did not click. It just did not happen up front. And I think this is where I think Orlando Pirates also flowed in this particular match. But Faith, I would like you, to comment, as well as share as well, this particular video on YouTube, and tell me what I missed in this particular match. Tell me, and let's dissect and let's chat about it. Aye.